Good afternoon, students. Today I'll be talking about sociology and rural sociology and the Indian rural society. So let us start with the class. So let us start with sociology and rural sociology. Then we will discuss about the Indian rural society. The term sociology was first used by a Frenchman, Isidore Auguste Marie François Xavier Comte, in short Auguste Comte, in the year 1830, when he proposed a synthetic science uniting all knowledge about human activity. Auguste Comte was the first to develop the concept of sociology. He defined sociology as a positive science. What is a positive science? Positivism is a search for invariant laws of natural and social world. Comte identified three basic methods for discovering these invariant laws: observation, experimentation, and comparison. He is famous for his law of three stages theory. That is, these three stages are the theological, the metaphysical, and the positivist. By using certain tenets of physics, chemistry, and biology, Comte extrapolated what he considered to be a few irrefutable facts about society. Namely, that since the growth of human mind progresses in stages, so too must the societies. He believed that the growth of human mind progresses in stages, so is the societies. He claimed the history of society could be divided into these three different stages, that is the theological, the metaphysical, and positive, otherwise known as the law of the three stages. The theological stage reveals humankind's superstitious nature, one that ascribed their supernatural causes to the working of the world. The metaphysical stage is an interim stage in which humanity begins to shed its superstitious nature. And the final and most evolved stage is reached when human beings finally realize the natural phenomena and world events can be explained through reasons and science. Auguste Comte is called as the father of sociology. Now the word sociology is derived from Latin word socius, meaning companion, and Greek word logos, meaning speech or reason, which together mean reason, speech, and companionship. This is the relationship or the interaction between one human being and another human being. So what is sociology? There are different meaning, different definitions by different sociologists, related sociology, so you can take and choose any one of the definition of the sociology. What is sociology? Sociology means the study of the processes of companionship and may be defined as a study on the basis of social membership. That is one general definition of sociology. When we talk about sociology, it comes under the social science. It is the studies of the human societies, their interaction, and the process that preserve and change them. So according to Chithamber, sociology is a study of human beings in the group relations. As such, it studies the interaction within and between group of peoples. According to Gillen and Gillen, they said that sociology in its broadest sense may be said to be the study of interaction arising from the association of the living being. That is, through the interaction, through their communication, through their relationship in the society. Then sociology is a science which attempts the interpretive understanding of the social man, according to Max Weber. Max Weber said that sociology is a science which helps in understanding the behavior, the understanding of the human being. Then, what is sociology? Seeks to discover the principle of cohesion and order within the social structure. the ways in which it roots and grows within an environment, the moving equilibrium of changing structure and changing environment, the main trends of the incessant change, the forces which determine its direction at any time, the harmonies and conflicts, the adjustment and maladjustment within the structure as they revealed in the light of the human desire, and thus the practical application of means to end in the creative activities of the social man. When we talk about sociology, we study the dynamic of the constituent parts of the society. We study all the relationship of the group of the society, of the people, of the communities, their social movement, the social change, their societal disorder in the form of many deviance, revolution, and etc. etc. So it is very big. Sociology, the study of the society, is like a web of social relationship. Given the definition by some of the sociologists, it is a web of social relationship with interconnecting all the small structure related to gender, to racial, to age, to group, to institution, communities of the people in the society. Okay, what is rural sociology then? When we talk about rural sociology, it simply means the science of the rural society. It is the studying of the society in the rural setting. The laws, the structure and development of rural society in general can aid us in discovering the special laws governing a particular society. Why we need to study the rural society? Because it will help us to discover the special laws governing a particular society. Then, rural sociology is a study of social life in the rural setting to discover their conditions and tendency and to formulate principles and progressed according to A.R. Desai. Then, rural sociology involves the studies of human relationships in the rural situation. Next, we have the scope of rural sociology. What is the scope or the importance or the opportunity of learning and studying of rural sociology? When we talk about scope, we talk about the opportunity. We talk about what we can gain from studying of the rural sociology. When we study sociology, what we will get? We will get to understand the rural social life. What is going on in the rural life? How it's differ from the urban life. Then we study the social organization. What is social organization? It is a pattern of relationship between and among individuals and the social groups. Then we will also get to know about the rural social institution. The social institution is different from what you might be thinking, that when we talk about social institution, it simply meant university or college. It simply meant an educational institution. But no, in sociology or rural sociology, when we talk about the social institution, we talk about the different types of the primary and secondary institution, like education, the family, laws, political and orders. All these institutions which form the basic set of social norms which organize around the preservation of the basic societal value. Then we will also get to study the social process, which are the ways in which the individual and groups interact, adjust and readjust and establish relationships and pattern of the behavior which are gained, modified through their social interaction. Then we will also study about the social control and social change in rural social setting. How is the social control takes place in the rural social setup? Whether it is a formal, informal, the social control simply mean the laws and orders that are used in order to control one's behavior, right? In order to control the human behavior, we need a social control. Then the social change. What has the change taken place in the rural setup? How it differs after the industrialization, after the urbanization in the urban area, how it differ, how the social changes takes place. Then we will see about the rural planning and the reconstruction, a way to modify the people needs, their problems, a way to plan the economic and socio-economic improvement of the people in the rural areas. Then we will also get to know about the religion and culture in the rural society, the importance of religion and culture in rural society. Then the rural problems and the rural community as a whole. Then we will also get to know the difference between the rural and the urban society, which I'm going to discuss today. Okay, in this class, after some times, I'm going to discuss also about the rural and the urban society. Okay. Now, these are the differences between the rural sociology and extension education. What is the difference between rural sociology and extension? Remember that extension is a behavioral science which deals with changing the behavior of the people. In rural sociology, we simply study the society, the laws, structures, and development of the rural society, whereas in extension, which is an informal and non-formal education for the rural people in order to develop a rural society on a desirable lines. Then rural sociology is a study of attitude and behaviors, whereas in extension we seek to modify or change the attitude and behavior of the people. Our main aim is to change the behavior and attitude of the people, of the farmers. Then in sociology we study the needs and interests of the rural society, whereas in extension it helps rural people to discover their needs and problems and build educational programs based on their needs and wants. Remember, one of the principles of extension is that it should be the principle of needs and interests. The problem should be a problem oriented and according to the needs and interests of the people. Then rural sociology analyzes rural social relationship, a group or organized and leaders in rural areas, whereas the extension it utilizes the organizers and leaders to achieve the objective of rural development. We also have the principle of leadership in extension, which we seek to utilize the leaders in order to bring about a change in the rural society. Then number 5, it studies social situations and assembles social facts of the rural society, whereas extension it makes use of such social data as a basis for building up extension programs for rural people. Then rural sociology investigates the social culture, the political and religious problem of the rural society, whereas extension it also studies these problems but with the reference to their impact on extension work in the village. That is the differences between the rural sociology and extension education. Now, coming to the important characteristic of the Indian rural society. What are the important characteristics? What make up the Indian rural society? Number 1, the village is a unit of the rural society. Without the village, we cannot call that society a rural society. So a village is like a heart of the rural society. It's like a unit of the rural society that form up the rural society. Number 2, the village as a social and cultural unit possesses a basically uniform organization and structure of values all over India. Many problems are common to the entire Indian countryside. Yes, when we talk about the Indian rural society, we will see that all the problems are nearly common to each other. You will see that one village and another village, they will be having similar problems. Problems in the low income, problems in agriculture, problems in the knowledge about the latest technology. All these problems are common when we talk about the Indian rural society. Then the ethnic, linguistic, religious and caste composition of the village largely determine its character and structure. A village or an Indian rural society should have its own ethnic, its own linguistic, its own religious and caste composition of the village, which this help in determine its character and structure. that we have different languages, different types of group of people. In our class, we have the people from Kerala, Marathi group. We have the Telugu, we have the Tamilian, then we have the North Indian. Okay, all these are the ethnic of our Indian culture. Then we have different languages. Some of you speak Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Oriya, Assamese, all these language. Then you have different religions. They have different castes. We all come from a place where we have our own unique characteristic. In the same way, the village is also having its own languages, religious, caste, and other composition which is different in their own character and structure. Then when we talk about the Indian rural society, women do not have full equality with men in several aspects of life. Yes, in the Indian rural society, women tends to be below the men as always. They don't have the full equality, or they are not on par with the men. They are not equal with the men in many aspects of their family, their work, and other set of decision makings. All these we will come to know that when we compare the rural and the urban areas. Then Indian rural society is predominantly based on agriculture. People depends on agriculture. Most of the people depends their source of income and livelihood on agriculture. Then every village has its own organizational setup, authority, and section. Yes, in the Indian rural society, we will see that the pattern of relationship between and among the individual and the social groups are set up by their own organization. Then social distance or isolation has a bearing on the nature of the organization of the village and of its view on the world. When you go to the village, you will see that there is a social distance or isolation from the highway, from the industries, from the other type of organization which form the urban areas or which form the urbanization. These are isolated. They have a separate environment where you can see that a village will have a different environment when you compare with the urban area. The village settlements are generally governed by a certain regional and local traditions. They have their own region and local traditions. They follow their own norms. They follow their own set of rules and principles, own culture, and also they will have the different types of different houses, dresses, speeches, and manners that follows the set of pattern of the cultural areas according to where they belong. Now let us see the differences between rural and urban. When we talk about the urban area, we talk about the cities, the suburbs, and towns. Whereas the rural areas, we will be talking about the village. Now let us see the differences between these two areas, that is the urban and the rural, based on their different characteristics and parameters. The first difference that we have here is occupation. People in the rural areas are mainly depending on agriculture as the main source of income, and their main or primary occupation is agriculture, whereas the people in the urban areas are having different types of occupation. Some of them might be working in the call center, some might be scientists, some might be mechanical engineers, some might be businessmen. So there is a variation in the occupation. Whereas the rural areas, the people are mainly depending on agriculture as their source of income and their primary occupation. Next we have is the environment. The rural people are having a direct relationship with the nature. The rural people are having a direct relationship with the nature. Whereas the urban areas, the people are having a greater isolation from the nature. The size of the community. in the rural areas, as you can see, size of the community are not correlated, whereas the urban areas, the size of the community are positively correlated. You can see over here the difference of the rural with the urban. The rural communities are of small size, whereas the urban communities are of larger size. Population. The rural areas are more homogeneity. That means they are having the same or similar population. That is a population or a group of people with the same language, with the same culture, same belief, same traditions. Whereas in the urban area, there is more of a heterogeneity. That is a differences in their culture, traditions, their languages of the people. Although the total population living in the urban areas is much less compared to rural areas, the population density is very high in the urban areas. You see that the people or the density of the population is more in the urban areas as compared to the rural areas. Then there is a very high pollution in the urban areas due to the high population density. Then also we can compare that the rural areas are having lesser population as well and lesser pollution as well when we compare with the urban areas. Then the culture. The peoples are quite conservative and tradition bound. They are guided by superstitions and age-old custom. They do not accept importance of the scientific functions. People in the rural areas are quite conservative and they are very traditional oriented people. They are skeptical, they are orthodox people, and they are always and often guided by their superstitious belief. In everything that they do, they try to follow their custom and their traditions. Even when they fall sick, they will not go to any doctors, right? They will try to get their own medicine through their own traditions that they invented, the medicine, picking up of herbs from the forest, or they will make their own herbal medicines at their home instead of going and show their sickness and their disease to the doctor. That is how the culture of the rural people are. Whereas the urban areas people, they are free from conservative and traditions. They are free from the superstitions and customs. They are influenced by scientific invention which bring about changes in their everyday life. The urban people are, since they are urbanized, they are changing according to the trend of what is going on in the society. Whereas the rural areas, the people tend not to accept the changes in the society. Next we have is the social stratification. The social stratification is referring to the society categorization of its people into groups based on the socio-economic factors like wealth, income, race, education, then ethnicity, then gender, occupation, their status. So the division of the society into different strata is a social stratification. When we talk about the village, we see that the social stratification is traditional, whereas the urban area, the society is divided based on the economic, social, political, educational, and the other factors. Then we have the social mobility. Social mobility is the movement or the change that takes place within the social strata. For example, the system of communication in the rural areas has also a great deal to do with the impact of the absence of the external contacts and influence which make for change in the social thoughts of the people. Under these circumstances, the people tend to change their mind towards the development of technologies, towards the belief, towards their occupation, towards their religion. But when we see here in the rural areas, the people lack social mobility. They don't want to change. They are bound to their own traditions, and cultures. Then the people do not change their place, occupation, religion, political view, etc. Whereas the urban area, the people have a lot of social mobility, then people tend to change their place, occupation, religion, political view, etc. Then the system of interaction. The system of interaction is less in the rural areas. It is less. Since the population is less, the people are less, so the interaction are also less as compared to the urban areas. In the urban areas, there are numerous contacts. Then social control. In the rural areas, there is an informal because of the size of the community, whereas in the urban areas it is more formal because of more laws. The social control is a way in which the people try to make a person to become a good human being in the society. There are different types of social control where we will study in details in the chapter of social control. As you can see here in this picture, in the social control, it is more informal. If you do anything wrong within the society or in the rural areas, you can see that the people tend to just forgive you and patch up with you and try to be good with you again and try to forgive and forget it. But in the urban areas, it is more of a formal system because of the more laws. So they try to apply more laws to any fault things that you have done in the society which the society doesn't like. Next we have is the social change. People in the rural areas are having a very slow rate of change. People in the rural areas are having a very slow rate of change. The change is very slow. After 10-20 years, you will still see the same structure if you will go to your village. Whereas in the urban areas, the change is very fast. You can see the development within weeks, within months. You can see the process of social change which is very, very fast as compared to the rural areas. Then we have the social tolerance. What is the social tolerance? The social tolerance is the allowing, permitting or acceptance of action, idea, object or person which one dislike or disagree with. Okay, what is the social tolerance? It is a toleration. Toleration is the allowing, permitting or accepting of an action, idea, object or person which one dislike or disagree with. So the social tolerance is more because people do not face new situation. Whereas in the urban area, there are less tolerance because people often face a new situation every day. Next, we have the status of women. In the rural areas, the women are inferior to men. Okay, they are inferior to men. Whereas the urban area, they are on par with men. That means they are equal with men. If you will see example like here I have given that in the rural areas you will see that women will have to do all the household activities, the men will not do. But then in the urban areas, since the people have changed their culture, their thinking, their perspective and their minds towards certain things, you will see that the men can do also the work of the women. Then as you can see here, mostly the women their role is confined to the house, whereas here in the urban areas they are free to take part in any outdoor activities. Neighborhood environment. In the rural areas, the neighborhood environment have an important place, whereas in the urban areas it is not important. As you can see in this picture, here the rural areas, your neighbors here might be very close to you and they will be just like your relative. Whereas if you live in the urban areas, you will know that sometimes you don't even know your neighbor. You will never talk much to your neighbor, because the neighborhood environment in the urban area is not so much important. People doesn't tend to pay important to the life of the others, whereas in the village you will see that people, your neighbors, are just like your relatives. Then the leaders are based on personal characteristic. In the rural areas, the leaders are based on personal characters, whereas in the urban areas it is more of an impersonal leaders. Then the solidarity. What is a solidarity? It is the awareness of shared interests, objectives, standards, and sympathies, creating a psychological sense of unity of group or classes. This refers to the ties in the society that binds the people together in one. Just like in this picture, this picture that shows that the society that bind the people together as one is known as a solidarity. So in the rural areas, the relationship is much more stronger and informal, whereas in the urban area it is less predominant again. Then we have the income. In the rural areas, the people are having less income, and in the urban area, people are having more income. Next we have is the sense of belongingness. The sense of belongingness is where one person feels that that person is his or her own. So in the rural areas, there is a more sense of belongingness, more of a informal relationship, more of the acceptance of the people as their own. So in the rural areas, the people sense of belongingness are more, whereas in the urban area it is less. So that is all for today. Hope you have understand what is sociology, rural sociology, the characteristic of rural society in the Indian context, and also the difference between rural and urban. I will see you in the next class.